Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and we are meeting today and we are focusing on beautiful things, comforting things, wonderful things, great things, noble things. It's very important to have that kind of training for speech. Today, there seems to be a lot of anxiety and sometimes even panic about speech. And I think that we should become more aware about the very nature of speech and language, and then develop ways of conflict resolution before that conflict becomes devoid of speech and turns into violence. I'm so fortunate that my parents understood my love of language since I was born, and I was always directed into education about speech, languages, learning languages that are from different cultures, learning about cultural aspects of those languages, and then focusing on heritage that those languages bring from different cultures. So one of the skills I'm fortunate to know is translatorics, which is theory of interlinguistic communication, but also knowledge about translation. And that kind of knowledge can be applied to any languages. As soon as I became aware about the potential of internet to create international communication, I've been always promoting that translation ability. We have to have more understanding about dimensions of speech. Speech is really the closest thing we have to divinity. Animals don't have speech, even though they have brains that can process very intelligent thinking. They cannot express it through language. So human language is a great gift from God. Human language is connected to our voice. So voice has ability to process and express human speech. Many creatures have voice, but they don't have language. So even if they can express their feelings or their fears through voice, they cannot use logos, which is that unique ability that God gave us to express our minds, thoughts, and ideas in a very orderly way through language. Today, there is a lot of conflict around certain words and meanings attached to those words. But that conflict becomes like a loop of unresolvable anger because it doesn't connect to reasoning, to conversation, to learning new things. One of the greatest legacies that we have in the world is education. Education is a great gift given to us by God and by our ancestors who received it from Him. And education is a place where people are guided to knowledge. When I started training as a journalist when I was 12, I did not know anything about the complexity of journalism that I learned many years later. But I wanted to interview people around me, so I started in a very basic way, very simple way. But I didn't stay there. Over the years, I managed to learn complexity in journalism, and that is because of ability to understand and grasp complexities of diverse situations, of diverse people, diverse cultures. We will not achieve international communication if we do not focus on learning about the nature of language and linguistic communication. If we substitute linguistic communication with judgment by machines, then we'll end up destroying human communication. Algorithms are great to organize speech, but not to judge it. The reason we have that amazing education is because language is that capacity of human life that is individual. I speak as Barbara Knoll, you speak in your names, and we can only connect linguistically through expression of our language capacity. I cannot speak in you, cannot speak in me. So language is one of the most sacred capacities that human life has. And any peacemaking effort has to begin with that understanding and respect. We have to respect that because of the very nature of our lives, we all have the right to language. That is part of our biology, part of our nature. And language needs to be developed, shaped, cultivated, and expressed. And we can express language through writing, through reading, through learning, through musical connection with songs, through voice. So voice needs to be trained in the context of human language. And this is essential for us to develop peaceful interaction in social media and in other contexts. When we understand that voice is connected to human language and is a tool to express that human language, which means also to express our personalities, our individualities, to express love, to express lack of love, to learn how to love. And this connection between voice and human language is essential to create understanding between people. Voice, disconnected from human language, has linguistic capacities too, like we have today in many technological devices. But it's not the same as heart-to-heart connection through human language and human voice. So in all our discussions today around applying restraint on communication and social media, like on Twitter or Facebook, we have to understand that it will destroy that beautiful gift that God gave us to use technology to connect people in learning conversation so they develop ways of loving one another. If people are restrained, if people are banned, if people are cut off, they are treated like trash. You can do this to an old radio that is completely destroyed, doesn't work anymore. But human communication should be encouraged to develop loving connections. And that can only happen if we learn to tolerate each other and have capacity to develop knowledge that will help us love one another. Many people push for love as the solution of everything. Yes, if it happens, but as many of you who have gone through bad relationships know that one day you love somebody and he or she loves you, another time that love turns to hate. And then often that hate turns back to love. So love and hate refer to feelings. Language is a unique phenomenon because it also has capacity to express emotions. But language in itself, as logos, as capacity to communicate, is neutral. It's capacity to form ideas in linguistic forms and to connect those ideas with another person or group of people who express them. So it is neutral as a vehicle of communication. What is not neutral is the content of what those words explain. But that content should be shaped by guiding individuals into better connections with each other, not by banning them. Because by banning content, you also ban that individual's future to learn better ways. I have developed a lot of knowledge over my conversations with diverse cultures that transformed my ideas about many things in the world. If someone would try to look at me when I was 20 and then judge my whole life on the basis of what I was understanding at that time, they would miss the whole story of learning, development, and transformation of my ideas because I managed to connect with diverse cultures and learn from them. Unity doesn't mean that everybody is the same. And diversity doesn't mean that everybody should be always totally different and never connect with another person to create unity with him or her. So, in order to create peace around matters of speech, we have to understand that unity and diversity are very complex matters, and they have to be connected to linguistic communication in order to create peaceful communication. If someone tries to force unity or force diversity without coming to terms with it, individuals or groups of individuals understanding, you will not create peace. You will create only a certain suppression of what is happening in that person or in those groups' minds, and they will hate you because you suppress them. So in order to create more love, you'll create more faith. You'll create more hate, which, by the way, are talking about faith. Faith is a tool that we can receive from God through language. But faith is not the same as language. Faith is not the same as logos, but logos allows us to connect to faith. And some people do not understand that faith is not lack of love. Faith is not hate. Faith is a completely different capacity of human life that connects us to Kingdom of God, to God Himself. So it's capacity of human life, human existence, to receive higher level guidance than we can receive from each other and from earthly things. And that leads me to another very important point. How many people mistake faith with hate? They are totally two different phenomena. And in order to have peace among diverse people on earth who have faith at different levels, we have to understand that the way to create peace is through linguistic communication, while understanding that faith is aspiration and expression of those cultures. If we understand that, we can create peace between diverse religions, because we will focus on how to communicate with diverse people with what is within the realm of linguistic capacity. And we will respect the sacredness of their search for God, which is faith. And I think that this year, 2018, is a year in which we have tremendous opportunity to help God manifest the vision of peace on earth. So I'm going to continue promoting those peaceful measures and classifications of diversity that respects individuals' personalities and legacies. And I will continue to encourage you to dismiss all that rage and anger and unforgiveness and spirals of disconnection between diverse groups of people by forcing unity without respecting diversity of those people that would be part of it. Ultimately, the most powerful form of unity is divine love, because divine love has capacity to look at us individually with wholeness of our experience and with understanding of the limits of what we know and desire to guide us to ultimate knowledge, which is God Himself. So I encourage you to develop ways of linguistic understanding, of human language communication, and to continue using social media for human language development and communication, and not to be tempted by that very damaging will to ban people, cut them off, dismiss them. Try to create ways to engage them, to persuade them to change their mind. Sometimes it may take years for certain people to change their mind, but if there's a way to persistently guide them, they will come back. The biblical stories are full of situations in which people were taught by God Himself the right things. Look at Moses. Before Moses saw God face to face, he didn't have the knowledge that God gave him. So if someone tried to judge the entire life of Moses on the basis of who he was and what he understood before he met God face to face, that would have been an error. It would have been true because it did happen in his life, but it wouldn't be the whole truth, because by talking face to face to God, God imparted knowledge to him that completely transformed his understanding of life and truth and law and the way to organize politically. So we have to come back to that nobility of guidance in education, coaching in political speech, international speech, commercial speech. And we should stop the censorship temptation. That is not the way of the right of liberty. So we should come back to that wonderful gift that we have, which is language, human language, and the amazing things that we can do because we have that gift. We can watch wonderful films, read wonderful books, express amazing feelings, develop emotions, develop intelligence, develop wonderful ways of communicating with each other, develop great images, develop splendor. Recently, I've been really focusing a lot on the value of splendor, individual splendor, but also splendor within cities, within the countries, within the world, because it focuses our perceptions on beautiful things. So instead of trying to find fault in somebody or someone's speech, we focus on creating splendor in speech. So in closing, I wish us all to come back to the beauty, nobility, majesty, and splendor in speech, and to learn how to